Hey everybody, how are you guys? Hello, is anybody here? Hey, hey Salsa, how are you, man? Okay, did you get Python set up? That would be all you need right now. But I have a plan B for people who don't have a setup yet. Okay, that's okay. Don't worry if you don't have Python set up. I will show you a way where you can try out Python online without any setup, not even a registration. Oh yeah, VS Code is very nice. Hey Sean, how are you, man? It doesn't matter so much anyways today if you don't have a ready to go setup because we're only fiddling around with Python, trying stuff out, getting a feel for the syntax, and yeah, how what what does what really. So it's not really a project that we are doing today, so it's all good. Just need somehow to run somewhere to run Python, and I will show you a place online where you can do that. We will say 2 or 3 more minutes. Maybe some folks will want to change. They want to join me. Scaff is sending his followers into my stream. Seems like he has a developer monkey or something like that that he wants to force learning here. Okay, I think I will start right now. We are at 6 viewers. If this indicator is correct at all, I don't trust that new stream manager thing there. But anyways, welcome to this stream where we will go over the basics of Python. Disclaimer: I'm a Python beginner myself, so I'm basically learning along with you guys. Um, but the only advantage I probably have is 10 plus years development experience in the web space. So uh, for me, it's probably most of the time a little bit easier to pick things up. And yeah, we will basically go through the very beginnings of Python. And I won't get into much theory because I'm not a theory guy. I want to get stuff done. and so this will be super practical. Yeah, if you want to learn more about where Python originated from or how it works under the hood or stuff like that, read up online. There is more than enough resources. I will show you a little bit where I have my reference sites that I go to that are very useful, because coding is really copy pasting most of the time. um, and you will forget the most stuff that you learn, and you will look it up like 100 times per day. That's just how it is, because there's just too much to remember. Um, yeah, but after you got a groove of Python or any coding language, really, you will get quicker and quicker with looking stuff up. And of course, you will remember the basics that you need all the time. And you will prepare your toolkit so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. With that said, so what you're really up for here is not bad trading advice. You can get that anywhere else on Twitter, but here you will get bad coding advice. So let's get started. First off, I want to show you guys a place where you can code or try out Python and all the stuff we're doing today. If you don't happen to have a development environment set up like I did in my first stream, I will show you where this is. And that's on the site called glitch.com. I will post that link in the chat box. And here we search on the top right search bar for Python. And then you get here this top result called Python with the Python logo. Second one is it from me in the list. You click that one, and then you get this list of pre-made projects. And we will take the first one where it says Hello Flask or something. That is a Python project, and you will see the screen here where you click the Remix Your Own button on the bottom right of this box here. So click this, and what you see now is a editor, very much like Visual Studio Code, not with all the bells and whistles, but good enough. And in here you can code Python. So to start this up, let me see if I can zoom in here. Don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, to start, to actually get some output, click on the bottom left on this tools button. Hey, Bella. Happy to see you here. And click on the logs button here. So here you get this window where there's a lot of gibberish that you don't need to care about right now. And next up, we need to clean up a little bit because this is a more advanced Python project, and we will basically make it empty. So click that server.py file and just delete everything. And this is like a standard text editor. Okay, and now, well, file names are not the best, but now we are good to go. So we can try. If you put some code in here like hello, print that out, you get this output shown down here right while you're typing. So no need to save or anything. This evaluates the code, runs it, and outputs the code right here. Yeah, and you just keep typing in here, try all the stuff that I'm trying out, and you should see about the same result. It should be good enough. So, okay. Do you have questions regarding glitch.com? Did you guys catch where I was going? Really, the most important stuff of learning how to code is to actually code, not just watch somebody. TM3K7 asks, what text editor should I use? Is Sublime good? Sublime is totally fine. My preferred text editor is VS Code. You can see how to set this up in my previous stream, but there speaks nothing against that. Use whatever you like and whatever has the best tools for you available. So, okay, it seems there are no questions about the glitch thing. So, yeah, I will go over to VS Code and close this thing here. And I already set up a super simple folder with one file in here. This name and stuff doesn't really matter. And for you guys who are following along using Visual Studio Code, I found a very neat extension that does kind of the same thing as in Glitch, where you type and you get the output immediately. And the name of this thing is, let me just grab the extensions tab here and search for that. AREPL here. AREPL for Python is the name. And you click install here. And it's already installed, nice. And I can close this tab. And what you get now, if you go back into the Python file, is this little icon on the top right. And we click that and we get an output here. Can close this down here for now, like so. And now if I do something in here, it will immediately print the output and a list of variables, which is very nice. Salsa, what are you doing, man? Attention. I will show you quickly. No worries. Get on glitch.com. Here you go on glitch.com. And on the top right, you search for Python in the search box. You choose the second result with the Python logo, the blue yellow snake thing. And there comes this list of projects. You click the Hello Flask one. And you click under this big box that appears in the middle of the screen, remix your own. That gives you a copy of that pre-built project with Python set up for everything ready to go. And then you go into the server.py file and you delete everything. And this is where you will code. And to see some output, you click on Tools and then on Logs. And this gives you this window down here. And while you type, you will get the output down below here. You can, at any point of time, clear this log out with this clear button here. And the code will run again. Okay, hope you got this. Guys, maybe I can even give you the more direct link here. Let's see. Don't know for sure if this works, but let's try. Here, remix your own. Yeah, seems to be a normal link, so copy link location, and I will paste that. You can try when you use that link if that will work. If you should get directly into the editor. Okay, so let's start. So this will be super beginner friendly, like no coding experience really needed. If you have any questions, then just ask in the chat. I will try to keep up and look regularly for any stuff you want to ask me. So yeah, Python. As with any programming language, you have to be very precise with what you're typing. Coding languages are in general case sensitive. That means it makes a difference if you have hello or if you have hello, right? So the casing is important. Keep that always in mind. And the very first thing we want to do in a Python script or in any script we are writing is save something or tell our PC to memorize some value. And for that, we can use variables. Variables in Python are a simple name of some kind. The name is arbitrary. It cannot start with a number. It has to start with a letter or underscore is okay. Let's see. Yeah, underscores are okay. You can't use the, I think, pound sign is this called in English, because that's for comments. We'll get to that. Also, dots are not allowed, so dashes also not. But yeah, basically keep that letters at the beginning or underscores, then you're fine. So, and to define a variable, you can already see it. We choose some arbitrary name like name, and then we enter an equal sign and, for example, a number. And that stores the number 1 in the variable called name. So second, so we get some output, I will show you immediately how to print something. You already have seen that a couple of times till now. There is this print command. You type it in, then you add some parentheses and type in name, the name of the variable, like that. And now we get the output, which is 1, as we said here. So far, so good. So now there are multiple types of stuff we want to store in here. For example, if we want to actually save a name in here, not a number, as the variable name suggests. For that, you can use double quotes or the quotation marks, the single quotes, like that. And you can enter a name here. And this tells our script that it should save the word Peter inside this variable. Easy enough. So you have to be careful with the enclosing of the string, so you cannot forget one of the quotes, for example. This will give you an error. Right? Coding languages are not very forgiving when it comes to that stuff. You have to be precise. So, and I recommend if you get any error, read the error and try to comprehend what's saying here. Like here, a syntax error, end of line while scanning string literal. String literal is the technical term for this kind of variable for text encoding languages, not only Python. So if it says here it has a problem with the end of the string of the text, then you know, okay, probably didn't close it. And over time, when you get into the habit of reading the error messages, you will get accustomed to them, and you will have a much easier time debugging your code because, yeah, you will do a certain set of errors all the time. For some reason, everybody is like that, and then based on the error messages, you will immediately know roughly what to look for. Also, what you can see in the error message is the line number, which is super helpful because this tells you basically where to start looking for your error. So if I move this down a little bit, you will see the line number will change accordingly. So let's close the string literal to make it valid. And now we have this in our variable name. So let's do a number. We already had that. Let's print that as well. Number. There you can see now we got my name and we got the number. Print here. What else do we have? Yeah. Oh yeah. Next one is comments. You should get into the habit, especially if your code gets longer and more complicated, to add comments to your source code. But of course, you cannot just type in your comment in here and everything is fine. Like that's the name of the user or something like that, because Python will see that as a variable name and will be highly confused because there is no valid syntax behind this. As you can see here, it doesn't know what to do with that. It interprets that as a string right here because we had this quote here. So it's confused because that's actually code you're writing. So to tell Python to ignore this, you put the pound sign in front of it. Somebody correct me if pound is not the right English term for the sign. I actually only know the German word right now. But yeah, you will see in your editor of choice that the color of the text changes. So it tells you this is some sort of different text. And yeah, this is now a comment. And you can add as many as you want. This is a number. And you can have multiple lines, of course, with the value 1. Like that. So, and with this, you can document your text. You can give yourself clues what parts of your code do, which is very important if you have to fix something or change something, extend something in the future. Let's say if you didn't work for 2 months on this code, you will be highly confused if you try to understand your own stuff without comments, most of the time. Any questions so far? Let me know if you guys are able to follow along. I've been coding for so long. If I'm a little bit too fast, tell me and ask me questions. Oh, wow. Up to 15 viewers. You guys really want to learn code. Print 26. Okay. Yeah. Somebody wrote in the chat that you, of course, can also put in the value directly, like that. So that works as well. Let's comment that one out. So as you can see now, it prints the 1 directly without having it to save it in a variable beforehand. That's totally fine. Sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. So let's play around a little bit with strings. There is some stuff that we need to do most of the time. Oh yeah, but first I want to show you guys where you can find an awesome resource if you want to look up what certain commands in Python do. There is this website called devdocs.io. I will post the link in the chat box. Any basic editor recommendations? I recommend VS Code. I will show you quickly and post the link in the chat box. This one, it's completely free, it's open source, it's highly extensible, it's fast, despite being open source, it's available for all platforms, even Linux, and it's developed by Microsoft actually. So I recommend that one. I also go through this guy in my first stream, in the previous stream that you can find on the YouTube channel. Okay, back to DevDocs. So DevDocs is a neat little site where you find documentation for a lot of languages and stuff, and also Python. So you would need to look through the tree on the left side, search for Python. It is somewhere down here. It's alphabetically sorted, and you click. If you hover with the mouse over it, you will see a little enable link. You click that, and then it will get sent to the top where you have it enabled. Do you have to enable this because there are so many different documentations for different stuff, as you can see here in my case, and enabling and disabling the certain sections helps with the search, so it doesn't search for every possible language in there. But now you can search for something like print, for example, and you will get the result here with the Python logo. Click on it, and you get the official documentation of how the print statement works. There it is, yeah. So here's the print statement, and here it tells you what type of arguments it supports. This is right now looks very confusing to you, and you have to grow into it with experience, what this all means. Most of the times there are handy examples, and we will most certainly come back to this page. So let's see. Yeah, so strings. There are two ways you can define strings. You can use the double quotes or the single quotes. It doesn't really matter. It just has to be the same at the beginning and at the start. So I will stay with the double quotes because I think that's the commonly used ones in Python, but it's up to you really what you want to use. Yeah, we already assigned this. So let's say we want to save the address in here, like address. So we need more than one line, right? So let's try what happens if we do something like this. I will not enter my real address here, of course. Some street one, I don't know, like that. Okay, as we can see, it starts complaining with end of line while scanning string literal. So it says, yeah, dummy, you didn't close the string, so I cannot read it. So this doesn't work. There is a special syntax for that in Python, and for that you use triple quotes, like three of them in front and 3 of them at the end of the string, and now it starts working. As you can see, it has the line break in it and everything, and this text also, this place where the string starts marks the excuse me, the very left of the string. So it's not there's no indentation, just because we have this here, right? This is basically ignored in the output. Okay, so that's the multiline strings, and we can use as many as we want here. That's totally up to you. Okay, back to our single line string. So there is some funny fact about strings that you guys should know. You can actually do something like this. So what did I do here? I added these brackets, and this now outputs with the number 0. It outputs only the p, like the first letter in the string literal, right? So if I change this to 1, what do you guys think will happen? We will get the E, which is the second one. So number 2 will give us T. So let's do something like that. So I think I can do like that. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get this a little bit over here. So here you can see I basically put together the same word, but with the single letters contained that are part of the word, right? So as you can see in Python and most other coding languages, by the way, you can address or extract a single letter out of a string by using this square bracket index syntax. So this is basically the it's the place of the char really. And in coding, as a general rule of thumb, the counting of something starts at 0, not at 1, as we are used in normal life. But yeah, in computer stuff, there is nothing really normal. So we start here at 0, and that's as far as I know, like 99% of the time, that's always the case in coding, that stuff is started at 0, not at 1. So that's important to remember as well. So now there is more stuff to this. Let's say we wanna cut something out of the string. We only need a part. So let's say we got an email address, something like scambitcoin.com, something like that. And let's say we wanna somehow get this part of the string into a new variable, right? So it should be like a domain. That's the domain part here. So let's say we want this to be Bitcoin, but we don't want to assign it like that. We want to rip that out of here or copy that out of that string. So how do we do that? There is a special syntax for this, and you can append a colon to the index, the place of the char you're interested in, and then a length value like 2, for example. And this gives us, in this case, SC. So what that means is, Python, please give us the first 2 characters here, like starting at the place of 0, which is here in front of the S, and then it counts 1 and it counts 2, and these are the 2 that we are getting out of here. So, and of course, this one doesn't have to start at the beginning. This can also start at a later place. So let's count this. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do 5 here. And now we need the right length of this. We need, oh wait, did I just say something wrong? Oh yeah, I'm sorry, that's not the length. Yeah, that's how it is if I'm a beginner myself. That's the end address. Like we want to have from position 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So do this 12 here, and now we get the word Bitcoin extracted out of there. Okay, makes sense, everybody? Let me know in the chat. So now we can assign this to a new variable, like let's call this email, and we call this one domain equals, and now we do email square bracket up open, and we have 5:12, and now we print that domain, so we get some output. And there we go. Now we extracted the Bitcoin word out of the email address, saved it into the variable called domain, and printed that domain variable onto the screen. There we go. So now, of course, you there. Oh yeah, there's also something other to remember. You can also put in negative numbers, which is a funny thing. Let's say name is Peter. Let's go back with a simple example first, and we'll just print that here, and we add the square brackets. And now, if we enter -1, it will actually start to count from the back towards the front, right? So backwards. So this is basically the -1th character. This is -2, -3, -4, -5. So let's try this. -5 should be the uppercase P, and it is. So you can also cut out a segment of a string using negative values. I don't really need that very often, but it is possible. So we could do something like -1, and we will cut to, let's say, the T, which would be -3, if I'm correct. And this doesn't work for some reason. Oh, am I mistaken? Yeah, looks like it. Let me look that up. Oh, wait a second. Okay. Yeah. There is a little twist in here. What did I say? I think -3. What it does right now, it tries to cut from here to here, but this one is basically the start in the string. So we are doing it backwards. So because we are using negative values, we also have to switch those two around. So the end of our cut becomes the start, and vice versa. So we need to switch them around from -3 to -1, and now it cuts out the part in reverse. So that's a little bit of a brain twister. I would suggest you guys use just the forward type of syntax, which is much more easier. Sometimes you run into the requirement that you cut the back. Let's say you wanna grab that that end part of the email address. So you could use email here, and then we start at, yeah, I don't even know if that works here with -3. Yeah, like, so this would give us basically the everything of the domain of the email address, but without the last 3, right? So that's another way to do it. Yeah, as I said, the minus thing, it's nice. Sometimes you will run into situations where you need it, but I don't know how often I use that in my career. I think like twice or something like that. Okay, cool. So what do we have next? Yeah, counting how long a string is. That's something that's sometimes important. So let's say you want to know how long that email address is. So let's clean that up a little bit. Okay, now we're printing our email address. Let's say we want to find out how many characters are in this email address. For that, there is a command in Python called len, or len, and that looks like that, len. And as with every command, or the correct name really is function, with the len function, you open it up with the brackets and the parentheses, and no, it's not. What guys? What is the English word for those round things? Round brackets. I keep forgetting. English is not my strong language, to be honest. Round brackets. What is this? It's round brackets. Okay. I will stay with round brackets. So, some round brackets, and then you put in some variable or a string, and it will return the number of characters inside that string. So, email, for example. And now we save that into a new variable. Number of chars. Chars is the technical term for one single character, by the way. And now we print out number of chars, and we get 16. I'm not going to count them. I just believe in Python that it knows how to count a string. Parentheses is right. Okay, thank you. So yeah, with this we can count the number of strings. You can, of course, also put the string right into here, like this. And now we get 5 because my name is 5 characters long. So next one, what do we have? Yeah, lower and upper, that's also useful. Let's say you want to convert some string into all lower or uppercase letters. For that, there is another command called upper. Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong syntax. For that, you save your string into a variable. Let's use the email thing here. Email variable. And you go with email, and then you put in a dot. And by the way, in Visual Studio Code, you get a list of all the stuff that you can use to do something on strings. There is a lot more than we will go over, but that's pretty useful. And let's say we want to uppercase this. Then there is this method or this function called upper. And then we have to save it back into itself. And now it's all uppercase letters. So why do we have to save it back? Because imagine the string here. Here is email in lowercase letters. Then Python runs this upper function on it. And what it does internally is actually creating a copy of that string literal and returns that copy with the uppercase letters, and we can do something with this. And what is returned, we will put into a new variable, or we can put that into a new variable, and we will and in this case, I'm just overriding basically what's inside of email, and now it's uppercase. So I could also put this into a new one, like so. And I have to try if this works. Does this do? Yeah. So print also accepts multiple variables, and it will print them one by one. So here you can see this is the first one, this is the normal email, and this is the email upper. So so that means this email variable still holds the lowercase email address. So it's basically a copy. It's because in your career you find it more useful to have isolated variables. Don't you put the function within the print? Yeah, so you can, of course, do funny stuff like putting the functions directly into here, and you will get the same result really. But this can get very ugly very fast. So imagine you do multiple things on your email address first, or on your string, and you would put them all in there. You get spaghetti code, right? It's get hard to read. So it's good practice to use variables. Of course, don't overuse them. Not for every little thing that you only do once in your code, you need to assign a new variable. That would be over the top also. But yeah, best practice is to save your result into variable and continue from there. It's just more readable. And there is one really important thing in coding, and that is keep it readable. I was falling into the trap myself often where I was coding just for speed. I just wanted to get it done, and you code quite ugly without using a nice structure. Also, stuff like having empty lines where it makes sense is very helpful to keep it readable. And I'm for example try to keep variable assignments and stuff like that separated with an empty line from function calls and stuff. So it's a little bit more readable and easier to digest if you read your own code later on. And to get back to my story, I was often writing really hilarious spaghetti code where everything is just inside, and yeah, and you think, yeah, we'll never look at this in again, and faster than you would know, you will have to change something in that code, and then you will understand shit. You won't understand shit, and you have to rip it apart anyway. So yeah. Also, if you work with other people on your code, they will hate you, of course, if you don't have a nice, clean way of writing code. Okie doke. So now we also have the. Let's get back here. Let me just reset this a little bit. So I'm saving the modified version of our string back into the same variable, override it basically, and then print it out. So we have also other stuff like lower, I think. Yes. But I would need to have uppercase letter in there. As you can see, it converts this letter. It makes sure that every single character in there is lowercase now. There is also capitalize, I saw, which is very neat because that makes sure only the first letter is uppercase. Also nice. So now to a little bit more useful other stuff, which you will often need. Most of the functions I'm showing you guys is actually from my experience what you will need when you are working with Exchange APIs. So I'm trying to keep it a little bit related to this because I want to work towards fetching data from an exchange and working with price data, saving price data and stuff like that, because I know that's what most of you guys will want to do later on. And hi Bexy, nice to see you, man. Thank you. Sending you love back too. So I know you guys want to do that, so we will work towards that, and I will try to keep it focused towards this Um, yeah, so splitting stuff is the next thing that's very useful. So let's see what we can do here. Let's say you wanna split this up into two parts. You want the part before the domain and you want the domain. For that, you can use the function called split. And this function split, if we open the parentheses, takes an argument called sep or separator. So if we scroll down here a little bit, we can read that up. The delimiter according which to split the string. None, which is the default value, means split according to any white space. We will try that, but you can also put in a single, can also put in some string, and it will use that to split the string in part. So let's try this. I want to split this based on the add symbol, right? So I will enter add here. And if we now look to the output, we see that it created this strange thing with the square brackets, where the first element of this is the scam, and the second element is the domain. Made myself laugh there a little bit. Yeah, and this is what's called in Python a list. Easy enough. And we will get to lists later. They are very useful. You will have to work with them, especially when you deal with OHLC data from exchanges, so price data. Yeah, so that splits the string in parts and creates a Python list out of it. So as with the list, because that's so similar, I can show you that right now. You can also use that square bracket syntax with the 0, and that will output the first item of the list. Right. So let me print the whole list here for comparison. So as you can see, there is the whole list, and the 0 tells Python, please only print the first item of that list called email, and that's scam. If I use the 1, it will print the element on the position 1. So this is 0, this is 1, bitcoin.com. And yeah, I will leave it at that and not get too complicated with this. So that's the split syntax, and I think we can also use more than one character here. That's something I'm asking myself often when learning a new language, if that works. So let's say we have something like BTC is scam. Let's keep it at 3. It is a little bit more readable, for example. So let's say we wanna, oh yeah, I have to clean that up, sorry. Okay. So let's say we want to split that up by the white spaces. If you remember, in the documentation of the split function, they said that the default value means that it will split by white spaces. So that means if we don't use any argument here, it will use the white spaces, the blanks, to split this into a list. And here's already the result. Next, we can also use, as said, we should be able to use more than one letter, right? It doesn't have to be one character. It's also possible to have a whole word here as a delimiter for your string. So now it's using the is word. So now the only problem that you see here is we have this space here and we have this space here. So that's a little bit annoying. We probably don't want that. And there is another function for that to fix this. And let's try this with what are they calling it in Python? Strip. The strip function. So let's do give here a little bit of a better variable. Tip, tip. So a little bit of VS Code magic. But it doesn't really matter, of course. It's just my OCD kicking in. Okay, let's clean that up, shall we? So print name 0. So the first item in that list, right? That BTC here. We can't see the space here, but it's here. If I select that text, you can see it here. So let's get rid of this. Or maybe we do something like, that's okay. So we will use, or we will save this in a new variable. First part, that. So now it's in first part. So first part is the first element of that list that comes out of the split statement, saved in first part. And now we will, what was it called? Strip it. So like that. And now it's, of course, hard to see here, but if I select that text, you can see that the space is gone. So now I can also put that back into the list. It should be, as far as I know, yeah, that should work, is by doing the opposite here, right? So now we cleaned it up here. So remove the space, and now we put it back. Put the cleaned up value back into the list. So we do name, square brackets, 0. That's our first value in the list. And we will write it back into here. So like that. Okay, let's see if that works. I actually don't really know. So let's print that. Oh, see, I completely deleted the strip function. So we will strip it here like that. Yeah, and that worked. So here you can see clearly the space is now gone. And we can do that for the second element as well. So that's the element on position 1. Remember, we start counting at 0. Yeah, now we could go on and save and do it like that. Second part is name equals 1. And then we do second part strip. And we get the same result. And now this is clean. And this is super inefficient like that to write it. Like this is so much typing just for this little operation. Yeah, so how could we make this easier? And now we will come back to what Salsa said. We can also just put that in place of the variable. So skip the variable here, which is in this case for my liking totally fine. So I can just cut this out here and replace that variable, delete that. And now we get the same result. But basically, we skip the assignment of an extra variable and just do it directly on the first element, strip it, and write it back into the first element. And we'll do the same for the very first element. So like that. Yeah. So now we're doing it directly instead of assigning it to a variable, stripping it, and then writing it back. We do it in one go, right? So that is totally fine. So it's always a yeah, a mix of how short can I write the code until it becomes, it's a balance of how short can I write the code before it becomes uncomprehensible. So yeah, I would do it like that. So now, let's see, what else do we have? Replace, yeah, replace is another one. Let's say we wanna do some more stuff with this here. Let's say BTC has gone mainstream and we want to change this text to so that it reads BTC was a scam, for example. For that, there is also a function called replace, and this looks like that. Name equals, so we'll assign the modified string back, and we do name dot replace, and now this replace function takes two arguments. The first one is the old string, and the second one is the new string. So let's put in here is what I wanna search, and I want to replace it with was a. So, and if we now print that out, and I will comment that stuff out here, so just want to get into your way. We maybe need that later, so I will keep it here. So now you can see that the is was replaced with was a. That's the replace function. And I think this is also capable of replacing multiple occurrences, right? So maximum number of occurrences to replace, right? By default, it will replace all occurrences of the string you're searching with the new one, but you can also limit that. Let's say you but is, you have two is words in there, but is awesome, like that. So right now it will search for all is, and it will replace them with was a. So this now makes no longer any sense. Instead, we want to limit it so it only replaces the first occurrence of the word is. For that, we can put in a 1 here, and now it knows that it should only replace the first one, and the second one stays as it was. Yeah, so far, any questions? Why isn't it at 0? That's because this number here doesn't represent a position of something. It's a count, right? It's the same when I when I was printing the number of letters in a string with the len function. I will put in name, and we get some number. If you count those characters here, then you will get 29, right? So it will count all numbers just as humans do. It won't start at 0 and therefore print 28. It will get to 29 as you would expect. And here it's the same. This is a count, and a count is indeed like you have to define a count like you would as a normal human being. No? So the whole thing with start to count at 0 is only for positions of something. I'm sorry, it's hella confusing at the beginning. You will gain some experience with this over time, and then it will become clear. It's the best way I can describe it right now to you. Um, why doesn't it work if you input 2? Let's see. Well, you maybe have something else wrong here, because for me it works. We got is here and we got is here, and it replaces both of them. Now you have to be careful. If you have somewhere another is inside the word, like I don't know what is a word where is in there. I don't know. I will just artificially put that in here, so like that. Gaze makes total sense, of course. Um, so now it will replace this is, then it will see that is here, and this will be kept as is. Haha, pun intended. And yeah, so this will not take into consideration if it is actually a word with word boundaries. It will just look for those two letters and replace them no matter what. So you have to be aware of that. Do makes both. What if you try to just do the second? Oh, hard questions. That's a good question. We will have to see if I can find there something. Uh, let's see if the replace method has any other arguments. Count. No, it only has to count. -1 means replace all of them. Yeah, that's a little bit of a tough one, because here we would probably need to get into regular expressions, which is a little bit over the top right now, because they are quite hard to understand. The other way would be to split the string somehow, and then only replace the second one, stuff like that. Yeah, you would have to build around that, really. Right now, to my understanding, maybe there is some function in Python. If I find something along the stream, I will tell you. But right now, I'm not aware of an easy solution that's built in here that I could show you guys. Okay. So I will now do a quick toilet break because I'm bursting. And then we will look into how to put strings together, and then we will get into some other variable types and the lists and loops. Or let's do if statements first. They are nice as well. Yeah, if statements will be as next. Okay, but for now it's a quick 3-minute toilet break. Hey David, nice that you tried to come by. Ah, yeah. He has crappy internet probably, but it's probably too basic for you anyways. Okay. Yeah, let's get into some more fun with strings. Yay. Putting words together. Let's say you got. I think I will just delete all of this and clean it up. Let's say we have a first name, Peter, and we have a second name or a last name called trading. And we want to join them together. For that, we can use a plus sign. First plus last. So, and that puts them together into one output. We can, of course, also assign that to a variable. Full name, for example, is first plus last. Now we put that in here, full name, and we get the same result as expected. Now, if we want to add a space in there, because like that it looks a little bit ugly, we can add another plus in here, and in here I add a string directly into that concatenation, and I put in a space in here. Now we get the space inside that string. So that's how you put together strings. Of course, we can do here more stuff like teaches you how to code. So let's say we want to do something. We want to add a number in here, like so. In 3 hours long stream. Let's get a little bit smaller here. So that's cool. So now, but what if we want that number to come from a variable for some reason? Imagine you are dynamically creating a list out of user input, and you want to put in the age here or something like that. So we can put that into a variable. It's a little bit more compact here, like length, for example, is 3. And now I want to put that into here. So I would break that string up here like that, and then put in length, that variable with the number, and then I continue. Oops, then I continue that thing. So this gets now spaghetti code. So here we got the length into here, inserted into this, but this doesn't work. And what does the error message say? It can only concatenate string, not int, into string. So what it's complaining here basically is, no, dummy, you cannot just put a number into here because number is a different type of data. It's what we call encoding an integer. like so. While this is, as I said like a billion times before, these are strings. This is a string and this is an integer. Um, so Python only lets us put together strings with the plus sign. Because imagine it like that. The plus sign is also used to make a basic math calculation, like summing stuff up, like right. So what you're doing here basically is telling Python, please add 3 to this string, and Python says, well, I don't know what that should be, so I will just error out. So now we need to convert um, this integer, this number, to a string. And I think what we can do here for this is use something called casting. Um, we need to cast the integer into a string. And we do that using the built-in function called str, short for string, and as an argument, we give it that number. And now Python converts that number into a string, and now we can concatenate them with the rest of the stuff. So that's something to be aware of, that there are more than one type of data in Python. We can do basically the same example, but the other way around with numbers. Let's say we have here some stuff we want to add up, and for some reason one of those numbers is a string and not an integer, like value what equals 1, value 2 equals 2, and value 3 equals the string 3. So now if I want to find out how much that is, like total, it's always a good idea, by the way, not to use variable names that are already used by function names, because that can become confusing and often it won't even let you. So I don't know if this will work. Let's try for experimentation's sake. Value 2, and we add, just those two, and print that out. Sum. We'll remove that output for now. So that works, but sum is also a built-in function. So be careful with this. This can become confusing if you use that variable later on. So you don't know if it's a function or a variable name easily, necessarily. So be aware of that. Total. That's a little bit better because I don't think that's a built-in function. So now we get the 3 out of there. So now we want to add our third value, right? So let's do this, value 3. And now it says unsupported operand types for plus, int and string. So it basically says, idiot, you cannot add or sum up integers with a string, because Python doesn't know that that's a 3. For Python, this is a string that happens to have the char number 3 in there. So we need to force Python to try to make a number out of that. And for that, we can use casting again. We need to cast that string into a integer. And for that, there is the function int. Call it parentheses open and close. And now it converts that that string into a real integer 3, and it can add it up. So now the question is, what will happen when we try to convert some random word, which isn't a number, right? So let's try this. I actually don't know how Python will do that. So we will simply, what did I want to do? Let's simply put in something else like hello. Oh, that's nice. Python will actually detect that there is no number to get out of this string. Let's see what happens if we add some number in here. No. What is if we add it in front? No. Space? No. It's not able to extract the number out of there and just ignore the rest. I think PHP actually does something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So Python is quite smart about this. Okay, that's the plus sign and what it can do with strings and with numbers. And you need to be aware with what type of data you are dealing here. So now the question is, with numbers, what is with decimal places and stuff? For that there is a separate type of number called a float, and that looks like this. Let me just clean up everything. A number equals, for example, 2.8. So that's totally possible. And then there is a integer 2. And now we try to sum them up. Say a number plus a integer. I have a typo in here. Integer. Now it's correct. So that will work, even though this is technically called a float and this is an integer. And that's because Python will internally convert that integer to a float. And what you get out here is a float then as a result. So no worries about that. That will work as expected, even though they are technically different data types. Okay, that's it for this. Oh yeah, there is also a special function called type. And type prints the type of data that you're dealing with. So let's try this out actually. Print, and there is type, parentheses, and then the variable, a number, and a number returns then or prints class float. So this is data of the type float. Let's try the same with integer. And there we get the int, which is short for integer. So now we know how to do that. You can, of course, also just put them in here directly. This will work as well. You can even do something like that, where you put your type statement around a calculation itself. So we can see what comes out of this, right? Of this a number plus a integer. So we just wrap this into type, like so. And as we can see, this results in a float, because the float basically wins here. So yeah, that's how you use floats for now. So let's get into let's get into a little bit more interesting for a change, and that's conditions and if statements. Let's say, or oftentimes you will need to do something in your code like if x equals y, then do this, otherwise do something else. And for that, we have the so-called if statement in nearly every coding language I know. So how does this look like? This is written like, or let's just define two variables. First up, name equals Peter, and now we want to know if name actually equals Peter. So we write if name equals Peter, then print yes, his name is Peter. And I got something wrong here. What did I do wrong here? Oh, that's interesting. So, oh, yeah, I forgot the colon. There has to be a colon here. So everything else is right. Okay, how does this work? So what Python does here is it sees that little word if. So don't use that as a variable name. Oh, man, I'm so sorry. Guys, why didn't you tell me earlier that I totally fucked up the placement of my face? Yeah, that's probably like a million times better. Great. So now you see that output here. Yes, his name is Peter. So what does Python do here? It sees that if statements. That's very nice. That's very good. So I hope that everybody else was also not just looking at my screens, but looking at their at their debug outputs. You should have seen the same stuff as I have on screen. Anyways, okay. The if statement. Python sees the if, so don't use that as a variable name, please. And it goes on and says, what does my master want me to compare? Okay, it wants me to compare whatever is in the variable called name with this string literal, which happens to be the same as what is inside of name. So, and now what you see here is this, and that's a big difference because we have here two equal signs, and that's important because one equal signs means for Python to assign something, while two equal signs means to compare something. That's important. If I do that, this will result in an error because, yeah, this is not a comparison. It's an assignment. So we do put in 2, and this works fine. So, and we close that off with the colon so that they so that Python knows this is where the condition ends, because you can have multiple conditions in one if. We'll get to that. And if this happens to be correct, or as the more technical term would be, if this happens to be true, then it will print this here. So now there is important thing here. We need this indentation here at the beginning of the print, and this because the indentation is how Python knows what belongs to the if statement. So by adding some space in front of this, Python knows, okay, this line of code should run if this statement is true. Because imagine you can also do more here. You can print like something like that. So now there are two statements that belong to this. So if I would change my name here to like Martin or something like that, you won't see any output because this statement is no longer correct. It's no longer true. So it won't run this line, and it also won't run this line. And Python knows that these two are to be taken into consideration because of the indentation. So if I would remove the indentation here, it would again run this line because it no longer belongs to the if statement. Does this make sense to you guys? That's an important detail to understand. So with indentation, Python knows it belongs to the if block, and without, it doesn't. Also, if I do multiple lines down here, let's do this back to Peter maybe. So even if I do here multiple empty lines, it will still know because of the indentation that this belongs together and both lines should run if name equals Peter. Did you guys catch that? Okay, cool. What do you guys, are you guys okay with the speed? Am I too slow or am I too fast, or is it just right? Please let me know in the chat. I don't want to bore you guys, but at the same time, I don't want to overload you guys with information because that's probably for a beginner a lot to take in. Okay, Salsa. Salsa is okay with the speed. We will just go with the person with the most followers in the chat. Good speed? Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, next, indentation. So that's the most important part. So if I want to execute something after that code, after that statement, I would need to clear the indentation, and now I can print here while this statement is running, and if the name is equal, will run, otherwise it won't. But this here will run always because it's not part of the if statement. So okay, let's get back here. Let's say we want to print something different if the name isn't matching with Peter, but only then, right? Because right now this end here, or let's do like that for less lines of code, easier to comprehend. So this here will always run because it's not part of the if. So no matter what happens in this condition, this will always be printed. But maybe we only want to print that if the name doesn't equal Peter. So for that, there is an else statement, and that works like, I think it's just else. Did I use else? Let's try. Actually, I have to look this up. I don't know. Oh yeah, it's else, but again with the colon, so it knows that that else statement is ready to go. So now what happens is that Python compares name to the string literal Peter, and if that matches up, it will print this line, and only if it doesn't match up, it will print this line. So if I change my name here, it won't print that line, but it will print this line. So now to drive this point really home, we will put back in something like end here. So now you can see it won't print the first line because the names doesn't match. It will print this one, and it will always print the end line. So, and if I put back in the Peter, so it matches, it will print this line, and it won't print this because they match, and it will go with the end line. So that's the whole thing with conditions. So, and now we can do a little bit more complicated conditions. Let's say we want to print. Let's say first of all we want to get this a little bit more dynamic. So we already learned we can do something called string concatenation, right? Where we put them together. So I delete that name out of here, and I will put in a plus sign here, and then we will use the name variable, which will give us the same result. We joined them. So here. And now I'm no longer dependent so much on what's in the name variable here for the output, right? Because now what I want to do is I want to print this line if the name is Peter or if the name equals Martin. For that, there is an or statement, or keyword is the right word, is the right wording here. So we put in or, and then we do name equals Martin. So, and this works as well. So what will happen if we change the name to Martin? You maybe guessed it. It will print out, yes, his name is Martin. And because we made this part dynamically, I won't get here the stupid way, yes, his name is Peter, despite the name being Martin currently. So that's why I made this dynamically. So what this does is Python says, okay, I will first compare name equals Peter. Is that the case? If this is not the case, it will see, okay, there is an or. So that means I need to check this part of the code as well. And it will try to compare name with Martin, which will match. So it knows, okay, this part was true while this was false. One of them has to be true for this condition to be valid, to be a true in general, and it will run this line of code. That's the idea behind this. So now with the or, there's also an and, right? So I can just replace the or with an and. So this does now not make any sense. This won't be able to ever run because now Python will try to match the name with Peter, but it sees that there is an and, so that means it will also try to match it with Martin. So name would need to be Martin and Peter at the same time. And as long as you're not able to trick Python with some kind of superstate quantum computing shit, you will never be able to have two states in one and the same variable. So this will never run. But we can do something like last name, for example. The first one, Peter. So now we can compare the first name and we can compare the last name. Trading. And now it works again because now we comparing the first name and we comparing the last name, and both of them are true, which results in this code being executed here. So if one of them was false, like Martin, for example, so this would mean Python tries to match the first part of the condition here, which already fails. So it will never run this and will directly jump to the else part. Now, it's important to mention here that if the first part, or let me phrase that differently, Python will work from left to right in the condition. That means it will try the first part. If that matches, if that's true, it will jump to the second part and look at that. So if now the first part already fails, it will not even attempt to check the second part. Why is that important? Why is that important? Because let's say you do something very time consuming in your script, and the result of these time consuming operations are what you put into your if statement. In that case, you can prioritize how much work Python has to do, right? You can, let's say, this first part is easy and quick for your PC to calculate and to get a result, and so it knows if that is true or not. While the second part of the statement takes like, I don't know, a minute, because it has to download something from some exchange and compare prices or some shit like that. So by putting the easy and quick to do comparison first, Python will check the first one, and if this already matches, it will never try to do the long running thing, and this will be executed faster. So this is why it can sometimes make a big difference in what order you put these statements. Just something to be aware of, and at some point in your coding life you will probably fall over this, and maybe you will remember. But for now, important to know. Python will compare this, and if both match, it will run this. So, and the or means only one of those two will have to be true. Here we can see the first name doesn't match, but the second name, the last name, does match, so it will run this line of code, right? Because only one of those two needs to satisfy the condition. So Sean has some problem with the extension for VS Studio Code. You can also just run the Python file with the play button here. This will run it in the terminal window down here. So it's not as pretty and not as intuitive, but it will do for now. Sorry that I can't look into this right now. Yeah. Okay, that's the if statement. There is a little bit more to the if statement. And okay, no worries, terminal works. That's great. There's a little bit more to the if statement, so you can have multiple conditions also in vertical fashion. I will show you what I mean by that. It's called an if else, or else if. It's else if in Python. Okay. If is what it's called, and you would put that in like that. Let me put together an example for this. So name equals Martin, print hey plus name. Okay. Okay, what does this do? Let's make this a little bit more pretty. I don't know you. Okay, so what does this do? Inside the variable name is Peter. Peter equals to Peter, so it will print this first line. So now what if we want to do something completely different if there is another name, like printing a completely different text like I do here. Let's say we are Martin. So Python compares Martin to name. Python compares name to Peter, or Martin to Peter, and says, no, that's not true. I won't run this line of code. So next it sees, oh, I got an else if here. So I will try this next. Does name equal Martin? Martin equals Martin, that's true. So it will run this line of code. The else is basically the default if nothing else matches thing. But we found something that matches this second line here, this else if matches, so we won't run this, but we will run this. And you can do there multiple things like else if name equals pepper. Print where are the gains? Pepper. I'm sorry. So now we can put in Peter. We get the first line. We can put in Martin. We get the second line. We can put in Pepper. We will get the third line. And if we put something in that he doesn't know, like David, we will get basically the default if nothing, no of the conditions match, and which would be I don't know. So that's how the if and the conditions work. Yeah. Any questions about that? So doesn't seem like you guys have any questions. So let's continue. So this is only one little way to compare stuff. Let's reduce this example down, like really down to the core basic. So let's say we want to print this line of code only if this doesn't match. For that, there is also another type of comparison with an exclamation mark, which means, so this construct here basically means doesn't match. So completely the opposite, basically. That means this line will only be executed if the name doesn't match Peter. So David doesn't match Peter, this line will run. And as soon as the lines match, it won't be run. So you have to be careful with the equals and doesn't equal, because this can get complicated very fast if you have a tree of conditions that you're putting together, and you will need to think about, okay, if it's not equal, it basically means it's true for the whole if, so it runs the code, while on other times it only runs if it's really equal. So yeah, that can be a brain twister. Be careful with that. What else do we have? Yeah, we got comparing numbers. Yeah, of course. Return is 100. Okay, that would be our example. That would be an example with numbers. So let's make this a little bit easier here. So as we will remember here, this won't work because we need to cast an integer to a string. Otherwise, this won't work. String. So Now we got this ROI value, output it into the console. Now let's say we wanna do a comparison like only if ROE is bigger than 10, for example. Then you would write this bracket. I don't know what's the English word for this kind of bracket. This bigger sign. So basically, this says Python, hey, look, if the value in ROE is bigger than 10, and if so, print that. So if we go smaller than 10, this line won't be printed. If we go exactly 10, this line would also not be printed because then it's equal to 10, but not higher than 10. For that, there is a special form of comparison, which is greater than or equal, which is written like that. And of course, there is also the other way around, smaller or equal to 10. So if we go here with 9, would work, but 90 won't work. So, and also, of course, this works without the equal sign as well. So it must be smaller. It can't be the same. So that's the basics. So to sum that up, we got the equal, like that. We got bigger or greater, greater or equal, smaller or less and equal. And I forgot, we also got not equal to. So that's the most important stuff that you will need to use in your conditions. And you can mix and match them to your liking. And we also had the and, right, where you would write some condition here, and you would write some condition on the other side. Both have to be true. And then there's also the or. One of them have to be true. So that sums it up a little bit. And with that, we will. How long have I been streaming? Okay, nearly 2 hours. Yeah, I think. Do you guys want to continue, or are you already completely smoked in your head? Let me know. So no answer so far in the chat. That means two things. You either asleep, or I need to go in a few minutes. Up to you by a small base. Can't keep going. Okay. Okay. I will go on for 30 minutes, and we will do a little bit with I think maybe, yeah, we will look at Booleans, and what else do we have? Booleans, yeah, and then we will see what we're gonna do. Okay, I will do a short toilet break, 3 minutes, and we'll be back for another 30 minutes, and then we will cut the stream. Okay, see you. Okay, back I am. We will introduce the next data type, which is a Boolean. And a Boolean is something very simple. It only knows two states, true and false. And it is it's very much the same as I told you guys with the conditions, where all the time said, yeah, if this equals this is true, and if it doesn't equal, it's false, right? So this is basically the representation of that in Python. How does this look like? So this is true, true. This is false, false. So these are this is the special data type called Boolean. Let's comment that behind here, Boolean. And this is a Boolean true, Boolean false. So, and these can be used in conditions and any other places really. It's just like a binary representation of something is correct or something isn't correct. That's really all that's to that. So for example, let's print out the type of this. Type, this is true, and as you can see, this prints class Boolean. And we can work with them. We can compare them. And now I show you something something new. You also can put those conditions, as we have in the if statement, inside some other place, like the print statement. So if we do something like that, this is true equals to this is false. If we put that into the print statement, this will totally work, and print will print out the result of this condition, which will be either true or false. And in this particular situation, we are comparing true to false, and these two are obviously not the same because they are the opposite. So the output will be false. So false plus true equals false. You can also write it like that, so it gets a little bit more clear. True equals false. It's basically the exact same thing, but not with variable names, but directly, which equals false. So, and therefore true equals true results in true, and false equals false is also true, because false is really the same as false. So the result of this condition of this comparison is true. It's really that logical. That's all that's to this. So we can, if we go back to our example from before, where we had name equals Peter, and then we had if name equals no, wait a second. What is a good example for this? I was going the wrong direction with that. Name equals okay. No, that doesn't really show my point I want to make. But we will do that in the next thing I want to show you in the last 30 minutes, and that's how you can write your own functions. And then we will get back to the Booleans. So a function. So what is a function? Let's see. Remember when we did something like this? Name equals Peter, and then we did print name upper. So, right. So this is a function which is available automatically if you define or if you work with a variable which holds a string. Remember, that's a string, and that string is saved in this variable, and that variable basically represents a string. And strings have this built-in Python function called upper, which we can call by using the parentheses. This actually tells Python, okay, this is something that I can call, that I can execute, like a subprogram. And we can totally build these things ourselves. And there are, yeah, let's do that right now. So to define such a function, let's clean everything up. To define such a function, there is a special keyword called def. You probably have seen that if you looked at some Python code before. And def tells Python, okay, here's such a new custom-made function. And we will create a function that makes an uppercase version of our name, which is totally unnecessary because there is already something like that, but we will do for the sake of example. So to upper case. So, oh no, I think that's written together, huh? Right? Yeah, okay. And now we put in parentheses and a colon. This looks very much like the if statement, right? But instead of if, we have def here and the colon at the end. So, and now we tell Python that it should allow data into this function, right? So we have something to work with. And we will call, and this is just a variable name. So we will enter here an arbitrary variable name like name. So now if we go into the next line, now the important part here again is we need to have indentation, so that Python knows everything that every code that comes now belongs to this custom function called to underscore uppercase. Now we can work with that name. We can do name upper. So, and this would basically run the built-in upper function on that name that is coming into this new custom-made function, right? So we're basically doing the same, but we're encapsulating it into our own function. We can also do, to not make this so boring, with some extra. So let's, for example, append something in front of the name, like so. Name colon, and we concatenate that with the name in uppercase letters. So we do something extra, and this is not that redundant. So yeah, and now we will try to run this function. And to run this function, we simply have to call it, or we have to tell Python to call it, really. And for that, we just enter the function name to uppercase. And as you can see, the function name is already suggested by VS Code, which is very handy. So I can just press enter and it will put it in there. And then I open the parentheses, and now it gives me that argument here, which we defined in our custom function called name. And I will put in Peter here. So, and this should now run. Now, right now, nothing is happening because we are not sending something out, and result out of our custom function, right? So just to make this clear, this here is not, there is no indentation in front of this here because this code does no longer belong to our custom-made function. That's very important to know. So as I said, we are not sending something out of our custom function. We need to send out the result, or we need to return it. And there is is this special word for this called return, which tells Python, okay, do your operation stuff and then return the result of this out of the function. So now we can assign the result of the function, which is returned, into a new variable, or we can print it or whatever. So let's call the new name as a variable and print that new variable. And this should hopefully work if I didn't screw something up. Yeah, that worked. So what is happening here? I think for that, I will actually run the debugger to show you what's going on. So let's do this. I maybe should mention to you guys that Python, or really any coding language I know, I'm sure there are exceptions, but most of them, or probably all of them, they run from top to bottom, right? So they see the first line of code, they run on them, look up if they need to do something, then the next line of code, next line of code, next line of code, until the end of the program or the script is reached, and then it stops running. That's how it's doing its stuff. So with such a function here, there is a little bit of a difference because a function needs to be called in order to run. Otherwise, it's just defined. So Python knows that the function exists, what name it is, and what it does, but it only runs if it's actually called. And the call of the function, that is what we do here, right? With the parentheses and the argument that we're giving it. So I will turn on my debugger and we will look what happens here. So let's see if that works. Does this stop here? Yes. Okay. So what you can see here right now is the debugger, and how to set up this debugger I show in my previous stream. So go watch that, and there we will learn how you can do this yourself. And this debugger runs steps through every line of code till it reaches the end. And I will show you guys how this looks. So, sorry for bumping into my mic. So the debugger here starts the program, or this basically represents Python here, this yellow arrow. We are in line 1, and right now we are just defining this function called to_uppercase. Now I press F10, so we get to the next line. So you would maybe suspect that the next line that will run will be this one. So let's see what happens if I let it do the next step. It will actually ignore this line, and that's because this is part of this function, and this function wasn't called yet, so this line will not run yet. I hope you guys got that. That's a very, very important principle to understand with functions. And now we are in line 4, where we are actually calling this function. And what will happen now is I will need to use the right key here. I will press the next step, or trigger the next step. Now it's jumping up to this function here again because we called it here, right? With this line of text. Next step. Now we are reaching this line where it has the name. If I hover over this, you can see the content of this variable, which is Peter. This is exactly what we entered here. And it will concatenate this name with Peter. And before it does that, it will run the upper function, which will make Peter all uppercase letters. And there is also something important to understand. Python will first execute this, and then it will execute the concatenation. It will basically work from inner to outer segment, or basically most of the time you can think of it from right to left. Actually, we will see that more later time. Don't be so much concerned with this right now. But for now, it's just important to know that we need to call this function in order to get into there and run this and let Python actually do that work. So, and now the return statement is executed. See the yellow arrow. And now if we press the next step, we will get back out of this. And now we should have, not yet, but if we go to the next step, we will see that new name is now the finished product of this function call. So now it's just printed. Boom. So that's it. So to drive this really home, execution order would be first. Can I do it like that? No, I can't do like this. So first, define function. This will not run. Second line that is executed will be this. Call function to uppercase. Then it will jump into this and it will execute this because this says Python now run this. Execute this command and return the result. And now the fourth step is that we will assign the result back into new name. And fifth will be print new name. So that's the order that is executed here. Now let's experiment a little bit. Let's remove all these lines. Let's see what's with order here. What happens if we move this stuff down here? I actually don't know what Python will do. I want to know. Okay, so that's okay, as expected. Okay, so we get an error here. Name to uppercase is not defined, which makes total sense because, as I said, Python will run from top to bottom, right? So the first line that it will run is this here, and it will try to call this to uppercase, but it hasn't defined yet. So it's defined down here, which means it will say, yeah, I don't know that function to uppercase yet because you didn't define it yet. Meaning this line here didn't run. So it's important to first define a function before you call it. That's the lesson in here. So we need to move that up, and now it will work again. Clear the red dot, don't need that anymore. So to drive the point really home, Python will start. It will define the function so it knows it exists, how it is called, but it will not run it. As soon as you call it, it will actually run the code inside the function, and the code inside the function is the code with the indentation. Okay. Yeah, that's how you define functions. Of course, functions can have as many arguments as you want to have, as you need. They can also run without any argument, so you can remove that. And now it will give us an error because we are giving it an argument while it doesn't accept one. So we will need to clear this. And we will need to, of course, remove our work, our calculations here with the name argument because it's no longer present. Yeah, but this will also work now without an argument. But most of the time we will have some kind of argument because that's, yeah, what functions are used for most of the time is to get some input, do some work on the input, and then get some new modified output out of it. And that helps you massively to structure your code. That's really the important point here. You can, of course, have multiple lines, as I already said, like new value equals, and then we put this in here, and then we return new value. This works just the same. And you can also how did I? Yeah, you can also encapsulate functions into functions. That's also completely possible. Like we can, what can we do? We could, for example, move add a last name or something like that. Let's see. So we define a second function, def add last name, and this one accepts a name and a last name. So here we got one with 2 arguments, and we return the result of concatenating the name plus a space. So we get some spacing between first and last name and the last name. So, and now I have some error here. What did I do wrong? Invalid syntax. Oh, I missed a plus sign here. Okay, now it's good. So now this function is never called, so we don't see any change in output, of course, but it's defined in the code, so we can use it now. So let's now to melt your brain, really, let's use this one inside here. Let's do new value equals, and we do add last name, and we put in the new value here and some last name, for example, trading. This will have a little bit of a funky result. We'll switch this around. I will explain the code to you in a second. That, and just a name. Okay, that's the expected output. Okay, cool. So let's step through this, shall we? First of all, why does this even work, right? Previously, I said we have to define a function first before it can be run. But here we are running, or we have old behavior. We have a function call. We're calling our second custom function before it's even defined. See, it's on line 2. The call is on line 2, but we are defining it in line 6. So how can this even work? Well, the thing here is that because we are not calling this function right away, it doesn't need to be defined right now. To illustrate this, we will just run the debugger, and I will show you what Python does. So this should make sense to you. So let's run the debugger. So we start at the first line where we define to uppercase. And we jump over this next line. Now it defines add last name. Remember, this code belongs to the function. This will not run as long as we don't call to uppercase, which is the reason this won't give us an error. Because as you see, it has not run yet. It's now running the definition of the second custom function, this one here in line 6. So let's step over this. Now we got this function and this function defined. Python knows them now. And now we will call to uppercase, which is here on top. So let's jump into here. So it's now calling this one and into here. So, and now we are here, and now we are calling the add last name function. And if you remember, it was defined before, right? It ran this line, it ran this line, it called the function, and now it's about to call the second custom function. And that's why we won't get an error here, except I did something else wrong, but we'll see. So now let's step into this. Boom. And now it runs this line of code. We got the name and we got the last name, and it will concatenate them together and return the result. And jumping up again. Come on. Ah, damn it. Sorry. I fucked the execution up with the wrong key. Jump into this. Jump into this. Now we should go back. Yeah, okay, right. So now we're getting the result back out of this, and it's not assigned yet, but now it is. Now we get the result. Now we have the result in the name variable of this other custom function. And now we continue our work with this. First of all, it converts this to all uppercase letters and appends the name, prepends the name, and now it returns the new value, which brings us back to line 9 here, and where we will get the result back into new name. And I pressed the wrong key here. That's because of that we're already in line 11. But as you can see, there is the final result, and we're printing that out. So did that make sense, or should I go through this a second time, because this is just as equally as important? Let me know in the chat, please. One more? Okay. So let's see. Can we simplify this a little bit to uppercase? No, let's stay with this. Okay, once again, let's start the debugger. One quick round again. So Python is in line 1. It defines this function, so it knows this function by the name. So next step, Python defines the next custom function. Notice that this code didn't run yet, because this is part of the function to uppercase, which we didn't call yet, which means that we didn't run this add last name function, which means that it won't throw us an error because it doesn't know the function. Well, it doesn't have to complain anything because we're not running it. So we defined this function, and now we're defining the second custom function. And now it's the first time we are calling the first custom function, which is called to uppercase. So let's jump into that. So now we are inside the code of the to uppercase function for the very first time. And the first line in this function calls our second custom function, which we will now enter like that. So, and that second function gets the name. We are basically forwarding it, right, from here to here. And we adding this trading here, the last name. So now in our second custom function, we are adding them together, first name and last name, and returning the result into the name variable here. So as you can see, the peer from here and the trading from here have been added together, and they're now saved in this variable. And now the work continues. We are prepending the name thing, and we convert our newly joined name to all uppercase letters. And now we are returning the final result here, which brings us now back. We will now jump out of to uppercase. Remember, we called that here, and we will now jump back from line 1 or line 4 respectively back to line 9, where we get the result out into new name. And now we're printing it. Okay, I hope that helped to make it a little bit more clearer. If you still got trouble, rewatch this a few couple times, try it out. Build what helps me a lot is to build in errors on purpose, so you can see where the error occurs and what it says and why it fails. And I would also recommend to follow my first stream where I set up the debugger like that, so you can step through the code and see what Python is actually doing, which is very, very handy to understand how it all works. Yeah, okay, so we got that, and now I told you guys we will get back to the Boolean variables with the functions. So let's make one more example here. Very easy, just with the Boolean and with the function and with a statement, the if conditional statement altogether. So I want to define a function called is it is Pepper profitable? Okay, and we will give that custom function P&L variable. Add some colons here, and inside this function we will put a condition, and we will return the result. So this will look like that: return P&L greater than 0. So now we got a new function which does nothing else than comparing or looking up if the P&L is greater than 0, and it returns the result of this. So let's call this is Pepper profitable? Now we need some P&L. Let's go with, I don't know, let's say 1.3, something like that. So he obviously makes a lot, which is totally unrealistic, but we will go with that. And now let's check the result. Is he? Oops, like that. Oh, alt habits, that's from a different language. Ignore that. Is he? So we save the result back. And now let's print is he. So what are we getting here? We get as the result false, which is correct because Python is defining the function. This is not running yet. Then we are calling the function with this value here of -1.3. This line of code runs. It compares P&L to 0, looks up if it's bigger, which it obviously is not. So it returns false in this case, and it is saved as a result here in this variable called is_he, and we print that. So now, and because I said to you guys, we will come back to the Boolean stuff. If we print the type of this variable, we will see that this is a Boolean, right? So we can do something like this. If is he equals true, then we print Pepper is profitable. Yay. Else Pepper needs to take a break. let's remove that. So, and as you can see, because we have a negative P&L here, this custom function will return a Boolean false. So here, this will actually read as if false equals true. This is what Python is seeing when it's running the code. And because false is obviously not equal to true, it will not run this code, but it will run our else statement, which is Python needs a break. So if we turn this into a more realistic value, like, I don't know, 5 or something like that, we will get Peppa as profitable because, yeah, it's bigger than 0. So this custom function will return true here, and true equals the Boolean true, so it will print this line of code and not that one. That's example use of Booleans thrown together with most of the other stuff we did so far. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Or is this clear? Because if it is clear, I will end the stream here, because that was more than enough input, and we did not even scratch the surface, really. So now maybe that's a little bit of an understatement, because that is a nice chunk of basics that you need, and the more you use them, the more this will get you will get accustomed to this, and you will get fast, and you will write efficient, easy to read code. So I guess, yeah, in the next stream we will do the lists and how to use what's called Python modules, which basically means putting code into a separate file, loading that file into another file, and then running the code of that included file. That helps massively to organize your projects, because you will, with a little bit of a bigger projects, you will never have all the code in one file. This gets obnoxious. Yeah. So probably we'll do something like that. And then I want to get rather quick to something more interesting, like fetching data from Bitmax or something like that, fetching candle data from Bitmax, for which we don't even need API keys. So this will be only very few lines of code, and then we will do something funny with this price stuff. I don't know, maybe calculate RSI or something like that. I won't get too much into the sorry, behind the math of the trading stuff, because that there are libraries for that do stuff for you, and maybe we will use something like that. This would be probably useful to have in the stream at some point. Yeah, and with something more relatable as a mini project, you guys should get a better understanding of Python rather quickly, I would say. Of course, experiment with the stuff. If you work ahead of my stream, feel free to do so at your own risk. You'll probably be bored in the next streams then, maybe. Yeah, and if you have any questions, then we will then hit me up on Twitter, and I will try my best to address them in the next stream or answer them on Twitter. So what questions do you have in the chat? My boss will recommend me a unique class for advanced statistics and linear regression basics. Do you think it's needed? Well, probably. Well, let me put that very clearly. I'm a coder. My field of expertise is creating real world applications with interfaces and stuff like that, interacting with APIs and stuff. I have no experience with statistics and linear regression, all that stuff. That's way over my head. That's very math based. And what I'm doing in my streams here is basically giving you the basic stuff, so you even can put something on screen, right? To run those calculations. So I would say if you want to use that for developing trading strategies and stuff, yes, it probably will be needed at some point. Well, of course, you can just go back to libraries that already have a lot of stuff built in for calculating various metrics based on price data and volume and all that stuff, and then go from there. But it's probably helpful, yeah, to learn that stuff if you want to get really professional with trading algos. Yeah, it's learning to code is a skill I think that's really underestimated. If you work in some techno, uh, technological field, and trading is some kind of technological field, right? So handling large data sets of numbers and trying to gain an edge by finding patterns uh, or yeah, special, yeah, really patterns in the numbers. So yeah, that's just a requirement. I would not know how to do that. Surely not with pen and paper. It's just too much. Okay, with that, I will end the stream here before I get too much into rambling. And yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter. Other than that, see you in the next stream. Have a good day, night, morning, whatever time zone you are in. See ya, guys. Bye.